if we look at the latest Australian allegation about Chinese naval ships using sonar against an Australian ship, it is to be emphasized. First, where did this episode happen? It happened very close to the Chinese water. From the Chinese perspective, they get so close to the Chinese waters, and the Chinese naval ships absolutely have the justification to move up to observe what exactly it is doing, to try to understand its strategic intentions. Allow me to emphasize that this unhappy episode took place under the overall improvement of China-Australian relations. The Australian Prime Minister Albanese made a very successful visit to China, warmly received and welcomed by the Chinese government and the Chinese people. Between China and Australia, it is the only right thing for us to get along with each other, to improve our relations and to boost our bilateral trade, rather than to raise up such very unfortunate episode one after another. Therefore, I think we need to deal with the situation as it is rather than blow it out of proportion. I would urge both China and the Australian governments and people to really focus on what's the positive thing happening between the two countries. Let's really focus on what matters. That is the economic engagement, trade relations, people-to-people exchanges, so that China and Australia can get to know each other better, can get to improve their bilateral relations. I think with the improvement of China-Australian relations, I personally have proposed that maybe China-Australia can consider restoration of exchange of port visits by naval ships, meaning Australian ships making calls to Chinese ports, for example, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Qingdao, or even Sanya, when the Chinese naval ships making call to Perth, Darwin, Sydney, you name it. In that case, the two military can really exchange visits and try to improve their understanding and eventually trust of each other, rather than agitating for more tense relations between the two military, which will definitely poison the normalization process of relations between China and Australia in general. It is time to reposition the bilateral relations of China and Australia from mistrust to trust, and from confrontation to cooperation. I think this is the megatrend, and no one in Australia should try to fight against this megatrend.